John, can we start the live stream, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this first meeting of the Scrutiny Audit Committee for 2023. Mrs. Mailey, are there any apologies or substitutions, please?
Apologies today, convener from Councillor Proctor, substituted by Councillor Ian McLaren.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Members, just before we start the official business, go to the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm pleased to say that this morning there was a report issued. The Care Inspectorate, Healthcare Improvement Scotland and His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary in Scotland carried out an inspection of our multi-agency arrangements for adult support and protection in Angus between September 2022 and January 2023 this year. The final report's out today. Staff have been made aware of it, but I'm pleased to say it's an excellent report. And one of the paragraphs in the report is that we are pleased to confirm that the report is positive and highlights a significant number of strengths that have been demonstrated by the local partnership. It shows a hard-working and dedicated workforce across our partnership that has responded to significant challenges and kept adults who are at risk of harm safe and protected. So I think on behalf of this committee, I think that is an excellent report and well done to all concerned. And I think Mrs. Williamson will confirm this, but I think Mrs. Williamson has asked officers to bring us a report and the action plan to the next meeting of this committee. Mrs. Williamson, am I correct?
That's correct, convener. We'll get the report formally brought with the action plan responding to the recommendations at the next Scrutiny and Audit Committee.
Thank you very much. I think it was very important that we mention that today. I know it's not on the agenda, but it's a very positive report, and we'll look forward to the action plan being brought for us at a future meeting of this committee. Thank you. Okay, members, agenda item number 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting of this committee of the 29th of November 2022, and we are asked to approve these as a correct record. Do we agree these minutes?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. And the first item of business is agenda item number 4, and it's the Tayside Contracts Annual Performance Report 2021-22. And I think Mr. Armstrong's going to open this one up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, convener, and good afternoon, elected members. As members will be aware, working in partnership with ourselves, the other 2 Tayside councils, Tayside Contracts deliver a very wide range of essential public services to the people of Angus, and they range from providing all of our school meals in all of our schools across Tayside to making sure that essential maintenance and repairs are done to our roadways, and also critically important the role that they play in terms of making sure that our roads are kept kind of safe and passable during the worst of the kind of winter weather. So really critical services that they provide in collaboration with ourselves. On an annual basis, Tayside Contracts come to Scrutiny and Audit with their performance report, and that's what the elected members have in front of them today. It covers the year 2020-21 and a whole range of the different services and activity that Tayside Contracts not just do with the councils, but with a whole range of other players as well. So we have with the committee today, we've got their General Manager, Keith McNamara, is here, and he will present the report, and then I'm sure there's any questions or comments that elected members may have. Keith and his team will be more than happy to take those. So I'll hand over to Keith. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McNamara, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very good, convener. Thanks very much for giving us a chance to speak to you today. We really welcome that. Just to confirm, I'm joined today by Dougie Mackay, who's our Head of Operations, and if we haven't as yet been joined, I think there's a few gremlins, Frank Riley, who's our Head of Facility Services and Human Resources. So I'm good, thank you, Frank. That's good. So as Mr. Armstrong said, the report summarises the work undertaken by Tayside Contracts activities. It's actually for the year 21-22 to deliver what we regard as the best possible services we can for the communities of Tayside, and in particular for today about Angus Council. It is an opportunity to celebrate our successes, but also to be honest in terms of those areas where we need to make further improvements. I would also remind the committee the world's moved on quite a bit, but the period which this report covers was during the last part of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in fact the end of the reporting period for this report basically coincided with the end of restrictions. So a lot of the activities which we would have liked to have been doing as part of our business plan and our annual performance report were very much shaped and prioritised by still the response to COVID-19. And as we're all aware, we're still experiencing the after effects of COVID and other global issues which are affecting all of our activities. So, Convener, with your permission, I would just like to share a couple of highlights from the report. It's in relation to the 5 themes in our business plan. We have 5 themes, we call them the 5 Cs. So just a couple of edited highlights around that one. So the first C is about confidence, trust and relationships, and how we rely on the councils to trust us to deliver the shared services on their behalf, based on their confidence in our ability to deliver excellent services. 2021-22 was a successful year in as much as we returned a surplus of £1.797 million, of which we were able to, with the Joint Committee's approval, put £200,000 of that into our Innovation and Improvement Fund, which will help support our transformation activities. That was against our budgeted target of £835,000 for the year. So it was a very strong performance, particularly in relation to our construction service for that particular year. One of the things that's important for us to build confidence and trust in our services is our participation in something called APSE, the Association of Public Service Excellence. They have performance networks which we submit our benchmarking information to. On an annual basis, APSE have what they call the annual awards, and we were delighted in 2021 to be nominated as a Best Performer award for catering. The Angus Street Lighting Partnership was nominated as Best Performer Award for street lighting, and the Transport Unit was nominated for Best Performer for transport operations and vehicle maintenance. So although necessarily we didn't win these categories, it's important that we were in the top 4 or 5, the only shortlist list in top 4 or 5 organisations, and that is across the UK, not just Scotland wide. So hopefully demonstrates the benchmarking we do and the high level of performance. The second of our C's is a commercial approach. We recognise that increasing our commercial income protects us from making savings in jobs and services, and also generates additional income which we can deliver as surpluses back to the councils to invest in public services locally. And our commercial activities in that particular year brought in £5.1 million of business from customers out with our 3 constituent councils. And as one example of that, Dougie Mackay worked very hard with an organisation called Amy, who are now the trunk road operators. You're probably more familiar with the term BEAR Scotland, but since August last year, BEAR have been replaced by Amy as the trunk road operator. We're working in partnership with them. We are sharing depot space with them, or they're sharing depot space with us, it should be more accurate. And we're also providing some winter maintenance services on behalf of Amy. So that is a £700,000 extra income as a result of our tie-up with Amy, just as a case study of some of our nimbleness in terms of our commercial approach. In relation to the third C, which is about collaboration and sharing, greater collaboration between our constituent councils and Tayside contracts gives us a route to reduce costs while maintaining service quality. And one example is the partnership that we have with Angus Council in relation to the vehicle workshop and transportation, where we provide the transportation and vehicle maintenance services for Angus Council. As a partnership, when that's set up, that saved something in the region of £4 million in costs by rationalising depots. And the success of this partnership can be shown by during the year Angus Council agreeing to extension of the agreement to the service by a further 2 years. In relation to collaboration, if I may go slightly off piste, I think the other part of collaboration is not necessarily the big formal partnerships. It's what we can do to support Angus Council during times of emergency or ad hoc ways, and just three very simple examples of that. During severe weather last November, there was significant flooding, which many of you will remember. Local residents in Brecon were moved out of their homes and went to an emergency centre at Brecon Community Campus, where our staff, employees from our staff, volunteered to travel under very difficult circumstances to provide the displaced residents with a meal service. And there was a couple of occasions when we were able to help out the Angus Health and Social Care Partnership last year. Again, there was an issue with tea time meal service within care homes that had to cease immediately due to regulatory and labelling issues. We were able to come in at very, very short notice, deliver the service immediately, and because of the positive feedback, we've continued to provide that service. And similarly, we supported the Health and Social Care Partnership last summer in a request to provide a hot community meal service for a couple of weeks period when the external provider let them down and couldn't deliver the service. So again, stepping in at short notice. And I think that's one of the features of Tayside contracts, the fact that we can actually come in at short notice to support communities, support councils in difficult circumstances. The next C for us is continuous improvement in performance, and the area I'd pick up in relation to that, although there's been challenges, is actually in relation to the school meal service. Last year, we embarked on a shared approach with our council colleagues, looking at the meal service and what we can collectively do to increase the uptake of meals, and that revolved around an action plan in terms of school food, the school meal dining experience, but also engagement with stakeholders and communications with them. And what we found, although it's been very challenging times post-COVID in terms of meal numbers, what we found is the increases in meal numbers, the daily meal numbers in the Angus Council area has risen from 6,900 as a daily meal figure from April this year to 7,437 in December last year. So that is an increase of 1,000 meals, which is a 15% increase. So that's reporting information in relation to this year, but it was because of the foundation of the improvement work that we'd carried out last year. I would also convene, as I said, one of the issues for us is to be honest and upfront about maybe things that perhaps there's a concern that things haven't gone so well. We had issues in relation to the Montrose area last year in relation to some construction activities, and we'd worked very closely with the local member, particularly Councillor Stewart, around that one. Councillor Stewart acknowledged that we had made improvements, but I think more recently there have been concerns just around the construction services and some of the roads maintenance activities. This is something we are very much alive to, we want to take very seriously. And if I may, can you pass on to Dougie Mackay to talk you through the issues and what we're doing about it. So if I may pass on to yourself, Dougie.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. I think it is fair to say in 2021 and 22, which the report, we had made improvements from the previous year. And as you said, unfortunately and disappointingly, we've had a wee bit of a step back. Not looking to give excuses, but there has been some sort of exceptional circumstances that we've experienced over the last 12 months, both within Tayside contracts and I think also within Angus Council. And that's been one in relation to a significant turnover of staff. That's through just people moving on for better opportunities, but also through retirements. And just as an example, within the operational side, within our Arbroath depot, we have now, within the last 12 months, a complete new management team, I think for about the third time in 4 years. So trying to get that consistency and continuity of what we had put into place within 21-22 has slipped back, unfortunately. Similarly, within the lighting side, there was a point in the year where there was actually no resource within the Angus street lighting side of the street lighting partnership, either from a commissioning side or from a delivery side. And I would say the benefits of the street lighting partnership overall with the resource within Dundee and Perth and Kinross assisted with that, although it still caused some issues, particularly around about sort of the Christmas light service delivery, which I know the lighting manager has been in liaison with a number of community groups across the Angus area, and has put a plan in place to try and address some of the issues and concerns that were experienced through that particular period of time. So we're acknowledging as a partnership within there that there's and we are looking to do better in relation to that particular service. On the specifics of the operational side, you've mentioned a couple of jobs Again, unfortunately, within the, I would say, the Montrose ward, one specifically, which I'm aware of at Craigo, and another one at Kennedy Avenue. And again, a couple of factors within that. The one specifically at Craigo, which I know is a high priority for Angus Council. Hindsight's a great thing, but I think there should have been a step back. The works in that particular location were due to commence right after that period of intense flooding, which meant that the topography around about the area where the works were to be undertaken and utilisation specifically of the existing verge has led to and I'll say a substandard, well below substandard works. But I think from experience, that's what was lacking. A young engineer, not his fault, going in, not wanting to actually say, right, okay, I think we need to take a step back, and then just exacerbated a problem. So we acknowledge that, and we are working to address it. And I've met recently with the new Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Graham Daly. We're looking to get both of our relatively new teams together early in February to lay out and basically reiterate what our expectations are of this collaborative approach from both Angus Council and Tayside Contracts. So that's with the management team of both sides, and then we're looking to communicate that down to all levels within the sort of the collaborative service delivery model, so that we can ensure that works are delivered as expected and to the quality and standard that's also expected.
Thanks very much, Dougie. If I may, convener, just take over. The last of our C's is in relation to that's what Tayside Contracts can do to contribute to narrowing inequalities gaps, supporting our most vulnerable citizens, helping people into employment, supporting the local economy, protecting the environment, and protecting or promoting community empowerment. So, for example, we're now engaging very closely through the developing the young workforce. We're piloting 2 schools in Angus, combining with that Beacon High School and Arbroath High. We're having discussions with the various employability teams across all 3 areas, running job academies to attract people who maybe need a wee bit help into the labour market, so that they can join Tayside Contracts. I think we are ideally placed for that type of activity. We have a wide range of posts. We have a wide range of part-time, full-time, term-time type of opportunities for people who might be juggling families, etc. So we really want to be playing a part in that. And we've also participated in recruitment fairs, again, working with the employability teams in the councils across Tayside to, again, attract people into Tayside Contracts. And the last thing in terms of community, and again, it's something that's relatively fresh, although it was promoted during the period of the annual performance report. We've developed a Tayside Contracts Community Fund, where we look to support community empowerment by offering local community groups or services such as catering, minor road repairs, small maintenance jobs, signage from our sign shop, etc. So we've actually had the first tranche of applications in. This scheme was launched in January of this year. First tranche of applications, and we're working through the approvals process for these. We've also had something in the region of about 45 inquiries from community groups across Tayside around the potential for assistance. So again, this is an area where we can demonstrate that we are supporting local communities and community empowerment. So if I may, convener, I'll pause there and I'd welcome any questions or comments from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Yes, I have. It's a question and then a plea to yourself or Mr. Mackay. The gully cleansing on your report, page 21, our papers 33, 22,675 gullies cleaned out. That's excellent. How often are they done, Mr. McNamara? Because you'll hear folks saying, "Oh, that's not been done for ages," or "That one's overflowing." I mean, are they all not take it? It's on a rolling programme. Does some get done more than others? What's the sort of regime you've got or programme you've got for that?
The answer is yes, but if I may, convener, pass on to Dougie. He's far more expert in that field than myself, okay, and I'll give you a far better answer than I could.
Thank you.
Yeah, they are delivered on or cleansed on a cycle. From memory, within the Angus area, that's every 18 months. So once every 18 months, there is and has been work being going on for some time to collect data, to possibly rationalise that to areas that maybe need treatment a bit more frequently, and allowing others possibly to go a bit longer. That work is still ongoing, and that's, I would say, a try council approach to gully cleaning to actually try and make sure we can maximise the resource that's available to all three councils, not just Angus Council.
Okay, and my plea is, before we go to questions from members, because there's 6 members got their hands up here. The lighting partnership's obviously mentioned in the report, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to ask either yourself or Mr. McNamara. I have reported, I don't know how many times now, flashing 20-mile-per-hour lights at my primary schools since August 2021. They're flashing 24/7. They continue to do so, and nothing seems to be getting done about it. And quite honestly, I'm getting very blunt and dry emails from constituents, and it's making me look that I'm not doing what they're asking me to do. Can I please urge you to get these lights sorted, because they're on 24/7, and it's totally unacceptable. This has been going on since August 2021.
Yeah, I take that.
I'm happy to cover that, Keith. I'm aware of some of the situations in Angus with regards to the 20 mile an hour at schools.
Okay, thank you, guys. That's all I want to mention. Right, questions? Councillor Wan, you're first.
Thank you very much, convener, and thanks to Keith and his team for the introduction on that paper. It's good for the public to hear all the good things that you're doing and all the initiatives that are going on, because unfortunately I think you quite often get the bad end of the stick because of pothole complaints, school meal complaints, and of course street lighting that was just mentioned there. But that's the question I want to ask you. You're looking at the school meals. Now, this is something that I've been quizzed over the last 6 years of being a councillor, is 1, the quality of school meals, and 2, how do we get more of the pupils to take the school lunches. I did have I wouldn't say pleasure, but I did try a school meal at Brecon High, and I've got to admit this was a few years ago. It was prior to COVID. It wasn't to my taste, maybe to some people's, but you know, the pupils standing behind us in the queue, they were all kind of giggling and laughing away and saying this is what we'll get all the time. Now, I'm sure things have improved since then. But what initiatives have been taken up with the school pupils to try and encourage them to take an uptake in school meals? Because specifically secondaries, I understand that they can nip down to Tesco's or wherever it is, any other supermarkets available, and get their meal deals from there. But you know, what are we really trying to do to get the pupils to stay at school and buy your lunches?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Wan. I'll maybe invite Frank, but certainly initially from my perspective, it's an interesting question around the quality of the meals, because there's 2 aspects to it. One is we must meet stringent Scottish Government nutritional standards, and when I've sampled school meals, they've been good, but in all honesty, maybe being a slightly older person, I would probably prefer a bit more tomato sauce and a bit more salt on them, which I'm not allowed through the nutritional standards. So it's maybe not exactly what I would normally have for my tea, but I fully support the concept behind people eating more healthily. If there's any issues with not necessarily the nutritional standards, but the quality of the meals, then we would want to know about that. Sometimes, or very occasionally, you get a bit of headlines in local media around the quality of the meals. Now, what I would say is we capture the complaints that we receive, and when you compare the number of complaints that we receive versus the number of meals that we issue every year, which is £6.5 million, 6.5 million meals, the sort of complaint rate to number of meals is something 0.00004%. So there's a lot of meals go out, and if there are, you know, deteriorations in meals or not reaching the highest standard, we really want to know about that so we can take action. In terms of what we're doing for encouraging young people to come into meals, we do things like taster sessions as kids are coming in from transition from primary to secondary. We have try before you buy type of sessions. We're working with having things like apps where kids can pre-order meals, because a lot of as you're saying, the secondary pupils, they probably don't want to be confined in a dining hall. They want to have a bit of grab and go, and so we're promoting these kinds of services as well. So it's much more technologically focused. We've worked hard with council colleagues around things like the dining room experience. Again, queues are off-putting for young people. Busy dining halls where people are cramped together are also issues for people. So when we talked about an action plan last year, there was multiple points on the action plan, so we're working our way through. And as I said, the meal numbers are coming up, so that's a positive sign. But there's always more we can do. Frank, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add that I've maybe omitted from that.
No, Keith, I think you've entirely stolen my thunder. But you covered all the right points. Of course, we are. I'm sorry, disappointed, Councillor Warren, that you didn't find the meal that you tasted to your liking. But as Keith said, a lot of it comes down to what a person's palate is used to. And really, that's why the Scottish Government has really pushed this since 2007, like getting kids at primary school to get used to a far less salt, far less sugar, far less nitrates, because then it becomes their norm. And I know when I took over this job, I would never think of having ties, for example, without salt. I would never think about having salt now, because I really wanted to get the experience of what the meals that we're putting out there taste like. And it's a question of your palate getting used to it. In terms of how we get the kids back into the schools, because that's been a real downside of COVID, is that people have developed new behaviours in so many different ways. As far as the school meals are concerned, two of these behaviours, one was in secondaries, rightly, like during the 2 years from 2020, that kids were urged to get outside at lunchtime. It was better to be outside in the fresh air. That got them into the habit of going to the shops rather than come to the school meals. For primary kids, when they were in lockdown, well, of course, their parents suddenly had kids on their hands to look after. They certainly weren't looking at food and nutrition guidelines to make sure they were only giving them healthy, compliant meals. To be honest, a lot of them clearly were eating junk, and they've now reverted. Once they've come back to school, my managers tell me that the lunch boxes that kids bring in themselves to the dining room features more, well, what I would call junk food than we've ever seen before. It's going to be a real challenge to get people back to where we were pre-COVID. And as Keith said, the meal numbers are going up. They're going up like that, though, but we don't need them to go up like that to get back to where we were prior to COVID. We've got a fight in our hands, and you're welcome any time, Councillor Warren, or any other councillor, to try our school meals, and would really welcome your feedback once you have.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both. I certainly had a lovely macaroni cheese at money, Mr. Armstrong and Mr. McNamara. So I certainly, the experience I've got is a good. But that was Moneyfeed High. I don't know about the other schools. Thank you very much. Councillor Gavin Nicholl, you're next. Question.
Keith, through convener, it's good to see you've been successful in getting the North East Trunk Road partnership with Amy. Did you manage to get the work done through the workforce you've got and the equipment you've got, or did you have to upsize to achieve this contract?
Again, Councillor Nicholl, I'll maybe defer to Dougie to give you a more detailed answer than I could.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Nicholl. We've not actually won the whole contract, so we went through the bid process. So far, as Keith had identified, Amy are utilising our depot space in 3 of the council areas, so in Forfar within Angus, but also in Dundee and Perth and Kinross. And up to now, what we've been able to do is assist them with the delivery of winter maintenance. And actually, the reason we've not been able to do any more as yet is purely down to a level of recruitment. We have had to make sure, in the commitment I gave to all 3 councils, that we wouldn't take on work for Amy to the detriment of the service that they require us to deliver. So we are continuing to look to recruit to be able to fill a gap in what we currently have. So we are actually struggling with resource, even for the delivery of some of the council services, in particular within the Perth and Kinross area. There's a greater shortage. So in summary, we're continuing to build on the relationship with Amy in the delivery of the service for the longer term, but that's been limited to this point just from a recruitment shortage and a challenge round about that.
Thank you very much.
What we are doing, and what we can bring to that, is the tie-in with the local supply chain. So what we are and what I'm currently just promoting and trying to get in place is the use of some of our own local supply chain, third-party subcontractors, to either assist us in the delivery of works directly for Amy, or a balance between undertaking some of the works for us within the council areas and ourselves undertaking the works for Amy. So the combination of the approach to how that service will be delivered long term from Tayside contracts.
Okay, thank you
Hopefully
very
that
much.
answers the question.
Okay, Mr. Councillor Nicholl, is that okay? Okay, Councillor Beattie, a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Question relates to Tay Cuisine. On page 6 of your report, you state that you serve 6.5 million meals, but on page 18, you state that the capacity is 20 million. That's only about a third. So can you tell us what Tayside contracts are doing to maximise the external income for Tay Cuisine? And could this possibly be included explicitly in your key performance indicators?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Beattie. The reason why there's a difference between the numbers is that Tay Cuisine serves the primary and nursery schools. They don't service the secondary schools. That's why there's a difference between what Tay Cuisine provides and the 6.5 million meals that I quoted. Yeah, we are currently in discussion with several councils about the possibility of doing what the 3 Tayside councils have done in relation to using that the central production facility of Tay Cuisine to deliver meals to the schools as sites without the need to have cooks in charge, which then could have knock-on cost savings for the councils. It also has a knock-on benefit to the councils, which may struggle to extend their school estate, as you're probably aware. There's government aspirations to extend universal free school meals for P6 and P7s. That could tip some councils over the edge in terms of the capacity of their schools. They wouldn't need to worry so much about that if they utilised our Tay Cuisine. So we are absolutely in discussions with several councils at the moment about that as a possibility.
And a bit about including that in your KPIs? Yep,
I'm happy to look at that, Councillor Beattie. Yep, that's fair enough. I'm wondering if sorry, I'm thinking out loud here, but I certainly want to, we'll have a KPI about external income. But if there's a sort of subset of that in relation to, say, catering and construction, we can subdivide that if that would kind of fit the bill.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bell, thank you.
Thanks, Convener, and thank you, Keith, and your team. And thanks for the kind of dose of reality as well, because I think we'll all be experiencing issues in our inboxes that can relate to that. I wanted to pick up on Tay Cuisine as well, actually, and the mention of encouraging local food providers. Given that today is the 3rd anniversary of Brexit and the harm that's caused in terms of supply chains, food availability, cost of living, and workforce, I wondered how much additional local food producers how many you've been able to bring on board, maybe in comparison to 2 or 5 years ago, and what your KPIs might be for the next year or two going forward. I see on page 54 the KPI on community benefits. The target was up to 50% and it's sitting at 61, but it doesn't break that down in terms of food providers. And I know I've spoken to local farmers, for example, who would like to see us use more locally grown and produced food. So just a little bit more detail on that. And if I can sneak in a quick health and safety question, I'd be keen to know about the kind of health and safety record, any RIDDOR reporting, including near misses. And I'd be happy for you to direct me to a particular committee report. If I have tried to look that up, but not found anything yet. So thanks very much for that.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bell. I'll deal with the second one first before I forget it. Yeah, we're happy to. We have monthly updates on weather reporting to our management team. If you think there's merit in having that as a KPI, then yes, absolutely, we can do that, because we gather the information anyway. In terms of local suppliers, local farmers, there was we've done several things to encourage local producers. We had an event in, I think it was March, April last year in Forfar. We've had a similar one in Perth in November of last year. There's a dedicated part of our website to support local producers. It's difficult to kind of give you a definitive number of the ones that have been added on, because part of the kind of process, or sorry, I'll rephrase that. Part of the mix of provision that we get, we have large-scale suppliers such as Breaks Foods, Campbell's Meats, etc., and a lot of suppliers, local suppliers, supply into them rather than directly to Tayside contracts. I'm aware of there was I think another one of our producers, Total Produce, and I'm aware that there's been at least one fruit provider. I think it was Perth and Kinross area, not the Angus area, that kind of joined on to them. So I can't give you a definitive figure of that right now. We need to speak to our suppliers and see where the local providers that come into them, and we could come back to you with that information.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Devine, question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Thank you and your team. Can I just say, Dougie, thank you very much about the lighting, because it was a great frustration for community groups. So vis-a-vis the Christmas lights. So I'm so pleased to hear that there's going to be an improvement there and there's a plan in place. Dougie, I just wondered about, on your collaboration, could you explain to me the difference between your RMPs with Dundee City and Perth and Kinross and what you have with Angus? I'm not on the Tay Cities committee, so I'm a bit ignorant about this, and I kind of wonder why we're not the same.
The roads maintenance partnerships for both Dundee and Perth and Kinross were established at different times, and ultimately what that is a formal coming together of delivering the service. So there is a partnership manager who is responsible for, and as I refer to the commissioning and the delivery side, if you want to put it in old terms, has both a client and contractor role. So they have to make sure that the consideration of how the asset is managed is taken into consideration, and also the delivery. So they have a responsibility for both, and bring the teams together to be able to deliver that. And in both scenarios, what that has allowed is one sort of a removal of duplication, which you always get when you have two setups, if you want to say a traditional client contractor role, and actually working together on how that asset can be managed. The approach within Angus between Tayside Contracts and Angus Council is a collaborative approach. So there is a coming together of working to try and identify, what the right way to manage the asset, and solutions round about that. What would say the difference is, both sides get to a point where they're comfortable on the level of commitment that they're willing to give to either make improvements. That step forward to a formal partnership just gives the autonomy to an individual, which has to report to a board to actually implement change. So sometimes people are in their comfort zone. They won't go beyond that comfort zone unless they're instructed to. So that's one of the areas. And if you say from the actual service itself, opportunities to realise income back within the service rather than having to deal with it on some of the more traditional contract basis. So again, within the service delivery within Angus, there's going out to competition. There's making sure that you follow the terms of that particular contract and how you recover income and specification quality within the partnership role, that is far more flexible, and how that can be done. So there's say benefits to it. It's something that we have been in discussion with Graham since he's come into post. But as I've acknowledged at the beginning here, and Keith said, I think we've got to give assurance to both management and senior management within Angus Council and yourselves as elected members that that is the right thing for the service and the quality, that will be delivered. So that's something that I'm actively working on with Graham, probably more sort of a short to medium term rather than a short term objective.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll look forward to hearing the outcome in due course.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Louise Nicholl, a question. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Going back to school meals, I was just wondering what percentage of eligible pupils take up school meals, and what's the split across the 3 areas?
Thanks, Councillor Nicholl. I'll maybe defer to Frank. Probably you might have the closest to the latest update on that one, Frank. I don't know if you've got it handy or if it's something you might want to furnish to the committee afterwards.
Yeah, if you just bear with me, I should be able to tell you how that split is shaping up. No, I would be better providing that to you, Councillor Nicholl, because I had figures there, but we've got more up-to-date figures, and because we are seeing an uptick in our latest figures, I wouldn't want to quote you figures that are out of date. But every month we monitor what is the percentage uptake of meals as a percentage of the school roll. What's the percentage uptake of free school meals as a percentage of entitlement? We do that for all 3 areas, and we forward that information on to, well, in the case of Angus Council, Mark Armstrong as a member of our GSG. So we collate that information and we share that information, so we're monitored and our performance is measured. We recognise that it's a joint effort of the councils and Tayside contracts to drive meal numbers up, and I can tell you, I think all of us are always keenly await the latest cycles figures, because as I say, we have to see that trajectory in all 3 areas increasing, and I'm afraid, like, while we are seeing some green shoots of recovery, the increase is too shallow still. But I could forward to you after this meeting or will I leave that to you, Mark?
Convener, if it's okay, I was actually looking for the data there, but for some reason I can't get connected to the network. Frank, as he said, sends that data to us on a monthly basis, and we work in partnership with Tayside Contracts to monitor that. From recollection, there's a kind of marked difference between primary uptake and secondary uptake, with a much higher uptake in primary schools. And again, on the back of free school meals, we anticipate a significantly higher uptake in free school meals within our primary sector. But on this particular issue, we're in ongoing kind of conversations with Frank and his team about trying to ensure that Tayside Contracts, working with ourselves, have the right kind of intelligence to determine how many meals to produce. But as Frank says, we can get the data out. I was going to try and pull it up just now, but for some reason I can't connect to the network. Sorry.
No, that's okay. If Councillor Nicholl gets the data after the meeting at some point, that would be, I think she'll be satisfied with that. Is that okay, Councillor Nicholl?
Yeah, no, I'd really appreciate that if you could send that on.
Okay. Thank you all. Okay, I don't see any further hands up for questions. Are there any comments from members? Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, very briefly, because I'm aware of the time. I just wanted to congratulate you on some of the initiatives you're taking, especially around the apprentices. I think that's a great idea to grow your own. Obviously, it takes time, but that's great. And the academy sounds super as well. The community grant, I have put that into the way of one of my community groups, so I'm hoping that they are successful. And very much I appreciate the work you're doing with deaf people. I think that is superb. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
I'll echo those comments by Councillor Devine, and I just want to home in on the £180,000 saving at Colles Quarry from the mobile crushing and screening unit that's been brought in. I just thought that was a good example of a good saving after a review. So I thought I'd point that one out and congratulate you on it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No. Okay, there's just one recommendation in here, and it's to review the Tayside Contracts Annual Performance Report for 21-22, included in Appendix 1, and I think we've done that, and there's been a lot of good questions and comments. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Mr. McNamara, Mr. Mackay and Mr. Riley. You don't have to sit in. You're very welcome to, if you want, sit and listen to the rest of the meeting, but I'm sure you've got plenty to do. But thank you, and hopefully we'll see you all again sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Convener. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, members, we'll go to agenda item number 5, and that's the internal audit activity update. And I think Mrs. Wiley will be speaking to this one.
Yes, thank you. This is a short report from me this time round, so I'll just move on with it quickly. Page 60, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we've added a piece of work around payroll to the plan for this current year at the request of the service, and that's just to look at some of the actions and controls that they've put in place recently to mitigate some risks that have been identified around some of the delivery of the service. On page 61, we're saying that we would hope to report that in March. We're actually finished the field work, but I suspect that we won't be able to report in March. There's been a bit of delay in getting some of the information that we needed, and so although we've got all the information now, we're still just at the point of drafting that report, so it may be April before you're able to see that. The other pieces of work that we're reporting today are around continuous auditing. So on page 65, I think it is, we've got information around the checks that we do on payroll and creditors' duplicate payments. Both of these have been brought up to the end of December processing. In terms of payroll, there was only one issue identified. There was an incorrect payment in one of the top 10 payments that had been made. However, that had already been identified by the payroll section, and that was already being rectified at the time of our audit work. In terms of the duplicate payments, there had been a couple of duplicate payments to each to the same supplier for a recurring amount of below £20. Refunds are being arranged at the moment, and we identified that there were 2 accounts for the same supplier, and that's been rectified so that doesn't, because that obviously helped to cause the issue that led to the duplicate payment, so that should be rectified going forward. There's information in the tables on page 66 onwards around the internal audit recommendations and counter fraud recommendations that are outstanding. There's nothing in particular that I want to draw to your attention there, and that's my report this time. As I said, it's a very short report from me this time round.
Yeah, it certainly is, Mrs. Wiley. Thank you very much. Can I just ask a question? The internal audit stuff, I take it it's ongoing, and you just pick different departments or different issues. It'll be a continuous task, is it?
Yeah, so the process is that we will actually be bringing the plan for 2023-24 to the March committee. That's actually going to be sent out for consultation later on today, and that's the programme of work that we'll work through for the next year. The working year probably starts around about June, July time and goes through to the same time the following year, because we do an annual report in June. So the tables that are on pages 61, I think, through to 63, is it? 63, yeah, are just all the items that were planned from the plan that was agreed in March last year. And we just update this table each time we bring this report to you to show you what's happening. So all these items in that table are the things that were agreed last year, and we work with the services to try and identify when the best time for undertaking the audits are. sometimes it's quite difficult to get times that suit everybody, but we work with that. So that's how it's done. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, convener, and hi, Cathy. It's just a really silly question. I apologise in advance, but just really, I guess some of it is quite objective. One, under the creditors' continuous auditing, and it's reporting as substantial with a yellow pie chart. And then at the top of page 62, the end user one is also substantial, but it's amber. And I just wonder the kind of decision-making process that you go through that makes that determination. It's still substantial, but one's amber and one's yellow, if you understand where I'm coming from on that.
If they're both substantial, they should both be yellow. So I need to have a look at that. But I think it's probably because, I do understand. Sorry, I'll start again. The reason for that is because on the continuous auditing, we're only reporting on one item here in terms of substantial. So the one item is substantial. This is going to be really complicated. Sorry. In terms of the end user computing, I think it's to do with the individual elements of that, but I'm going to look a bit strange that would all be amber and it would be substantial, but I think it's because the definitions for the individual elements in the pie chart are not the same as the definition for the overall conclusion. But I would like to have another look at that and come back to you if that's okay.
Absolutely, thank you. Sorry for causing you more work there, but it did confuse me there. Thank you.
I can understand why it would. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, convener. And Cathy, this is a bit of, I apologise for the going on about this, but on page 66, the internal audit actions in progress and the due date extended, we still have a lot under level 2 in that one department, the one directorate. And we just seem to be slipping a wee bit here. It would be really nice to see these ones, well, some of them disappearing anyway. Do you think that would be possible? I think you've given me reasons for this before, but I don't like to see these bigger numbers.
Yeah, I understand that. I think we do work with the services to try and make sure that, first of all, when they do the action plans in the first place that we think are achievable but are reasonable. But with the best will in the world, there is slippage in some. It's probably easier for the director for that department to answer that question in terms of where they are, because you'll probably find that a number of these actions are actually quite far on. It's just that the final bit hasn't been finalised for them. But I don't know whether
Here's Sharon.
Mrs. Fartner's here to be able to say something.
Yes, thank you. And we actually had considerably more actions outstanding before, and we cleared a great number of them. Quite a number of them were to do with payroll and the outstanding ones, and really you'll be aware, that we've had some challenges around the resources within our payroll team, and they've had quite a backlog to deal with in just ensuring that we're making sure everyone's paid appropriately and anything outstanding around that. So they've been working really hard on the internal audit actions that are outstanding, and we're seeking to get them all closed off as quickly as we possibly can, but very aware of it. And we have managed to clear probably, well over half that we had outstanding previously.
Well, that's great. Thank you. I know there's pressures on you with the staffing situation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. No further questions. Okay, any comments? No. Okay, we have the two recommendations. They're both for noting. Does this committee agree to note this report?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 6, corporate governance action plan updates. It's a report by the Director of Strategic Policy Transformation and Public Sector Reform. So I'm not sure who's got. Oh, Mrs. Smith, there we go.
Thanks, Convener. Right, I'll get Mr. Cargill to give you an update on this report, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely no problem at all.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Convener. Yeah, this report is a sort of regular update on the action plans that are in process. So we'll have one that comes from our annual governance statement, various actions we identified through that process, which are covered in Appendix 1. And the other action plan relates to the Scrutiny Audit Committee itself, its own self-evaluation process, where we'll have an action plan that comes out at the end of that. So that's in Appendix 2. So basically the update, the report provides the detail in the appendices around where we are on each of the actions there. Probably just worth highlighting there's three red ones that are on Appendix 2. So we've asked in section 4.2 for extensions of time on these three. Just to cover them off briefly, the roles of CLT and other groups is a bit of work that we've been doing for a bit of time now, really just to get a good handle on all the groups that we'll have in the council, make sure they have terms of reference, and really to make sure we're as efficient as we can be around groups and no duplication, that kind of thing. So it started off as a relatively small piece of work, but it's grown like topsy, and it's now become quite a large piece. But anyway, we're at about 90% completion on that now, with a view to trying to get to the end of that ASAP. So there's that one, and the other two are really in terms of our kind of maturity around managing risk in the organisation. So we've talked about developing risk appetite and also service risk registers. So they're absolutely on our radar for improvement work, and we are making kind of good progress, I think, anyway, on our approach to risk management. And these are the next kind of step along the way. But with things happening, priorities of things have kind of got in the way of moving them forward. So we just need a little bit more time to close these ones out. And I think on the risk appetite, we've actually a workshop this morning on that, and I know that that's actually moving forward now, and will include at the right time engagement with elected members and such like as well to provide some training on that. So these things are in progress. Although we're looking for the extensions of time, they're not sitting doing nothing. They are actually moving forward. Final point, Convener, would just be to say that we'll have, you'll maybe be aware that there's been a calendar invite put into your calendars. Hopefully you've all managed to accept it or see it, around that scrutiny audit self-assessment exercise, which we've been doing annually now for I think about the past 3 or 4 years. It is a requirement to do that for the committee. It's good practice. We'll cover it off in our governance statement when we do that. And we've set that date for having that workshop on the 28th of March, 10 to 12 noon. I think there has been some information put out with the calendar invite, background reading. So that's quite extensive actually. There's new set of guidance that's been issued. But I've been speaking to Cathy about this, and we will be planning to put out questionnaire in advance of the sessions so that we can get feedback and have a review of the scores and such like in advance, and focus in on specific bits that we need to work on as a committee going forward. And of course, if anybody isn't able to attend that session, then they'll also get the chance to contribute. Hopefully that's okay for the update, Convener. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I've just got one, Mr. Cargill, on page 73, the risk appetite. Obviously, it's delayed a bit, and I get that because you're waiting on your new consultant, the risk consultant. I mean, obviously, a risk appetite and assessing risk is a very specialised area. But how do you, how you're involved with that? How do you assess risk, and what kind of things do you look at?
Well, I mean, you're really looking at there's two main things, I suppose, is the likelihood of something happening, and if that does actually happen, then what's the impact going to be? So basically then use there's a model that you use, which is 5 by 5 to get to a score, and once you've assessed the score, you're then looking at if it's 5 times 5, 25, then it's obviously a very high risk. That'd be the highest risk. you know. So it's done in that way, and I guess then the risk appetite bit of it going forward will be about, you know, how do we kind of categorise risks and what kind of you know, measure of what kind of you know, how hungry are we to take the risk on things or not, as the case may be. So things like, you know, compliance with regulations and finance, things like that. We might not want to take much risk on that kind of thing, but other things like innovation and such like, we might want to take more risk on these kind of things. So you're right though, it is a complex area which takes a bit of getting to grips with. So, you know, that's how I suppose we're you know, happy to get elected members engaged and do a bit of training and development work on that with you to support you through that kind of process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gregg, a question.
Thank you, convener. Question with regards to the time extensions for these items. For the roles of the CLT and other groups, so the corporate leadership team, so their roles, and that's been ongoing for 2 years. So according to these papers, from the 18th of September 2020 to the 30th of September 2022, so just over 2 years. So is 2 years not a long enough time to create a briefing paper? And then with the other two, were the dates that were due again for September this year, they've been just under a year. So was those target dates, was that unrealistic and that's why they need a 9-month extension, or was it just being over optimistic with those dates?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. I mean, I think on the risk appetite one and the service risk registers, that potentially has been something we've been looking to do for some time, but the team that's involved in leading on that, the risk resilience and safety team, they've been really pulled away in terms of all the different priority works through COVID, the Ukraine you know, crisis and other things that have just had to be, you know, these sort of things like risk appetite and risk register, they've had to be kind of set aside whilst to focus on the priority work. So they're back on it now, and I know that the timescale we're putting there is June 23, but I'm, you know, very hopeful that we'll have that going forward in you know, the next month or so in terms of workshops and trying to progress that. So I think we will see those coming forward very soon now in terms of the risk side of it. The roles of the CLT and other groups, you're absolutely right. That has been going on for a long time as well. It's taken a lot of time to pull together the background information on it. You know, so we started speaking to colleagues about what groups are you involved in, you know, and went through every directorate. And you know, there's a vast amount of groups that we're involved in, and it's something we need to be conscious of to make sure as I said, we're being efficient with our time. So pulling that information together, getting it to a point where we're comfortable with what we've got as being the right picture, and then just getting that finalised now. And what we're trying to do on that is get terms of reference pulled together for each of the groups as well, so that when we go and look at the organograms, if you like, you can create a link, get into the terms of reference, see what the group does. You know, if you're then thinking about setting up another group, you would then be saying, well, is there a group already there that we can put this work into rather than create something new? So it has become a bigger bit of work than I think we ever anticipated at the outset, and hence it's gone on a bit longer. But we are now at the stage where we're bringing it to a conclusion, and hopefully you'll see the benefits of that once we get there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd, question. Thank you.
Thanks, convener. Just on page 74 of the report, mentions that the council organograms have been updated. And I was just, the way it's written, it's kind of, to me, it's as if someone's had to go and do that. And I was just wondering, going forward, or if it's the case already, that if information changes, does it automatically update? You know, like, or does it have to be updated individually itself? Just thought it might be a chance for improvement, or how that process worked.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of things in there, but I do know there was a fair bit of work done on that for for new members, and there was information put on the website as it says on the note. I think it's mainly done manually, but I do believe that we'll also have the opportunity to make more use of technology on that too. And I think there is actually, when you look at the directory through Microsoft Office 365 on SharePoint, I think if you go into that, you can actually drill into contacts, and you can then it takes you into the sort of hierarchy as well. You can actually see how you're connected to different members of the organisation. So there's maybe two ways we're doing that at the moment, to be quite honest with you, and there possibly is a bit of room for improvement in terms of refining exactly how we keep all that up to date. So it's something we could take a look at there.
Councillor Gregg, have you got another question, or is this a comment?
It's another question, if I may.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I just, again, on page 74 of the report, with the council organograms, it's got listed as a start date as the 25th of September 2022 with a due date 31st of May 2022. So obviously those dates are incorrect. So can you give us the correct dates? And also for the following two items, the Development Director of Officers' contact details and the review of EIA committee processes, there are no start dates listed for either of those. If you could give us those as well, please.
Yeah, the organogram one, that's actually deemed to be concluded. So what happens is this is information that's held on our Pentana performance management system. So what happens is the actions are put in Pentana, and the officers that have been assigned with the action are then tasked with updating. So it's been updating, and that one on the organogram is deemed by the lead officer there to have concluded that. So that's why that's at 100%, and it's got the green circle with a white tick in it. The other ones, sorry, Councillor Gregg, could you just repeat the ones you were wanting to pick up there? Was it the start dates on the contact details? I think that one would just be, it's just been an omission from that going into the system. You know, there's not been a start date actually put in there. So it's, you know, if we don't put the right information in, obviously we can't report on it. So it's something that we can pick up and make sure that our process and such like are make sure we put these dates in. I think that was the two, wasn't it? It was the contact details and the EIA process that have the start dates that are missing. So we can pick that up and put that in.
Okay, Councillor Gregg.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any further hands for questions. Are there any comments? No. Okay. Well, we have the 4 recommendations in the report, and it's to review, approve, and note. Do we agree this report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, members. So we'll go to agenda item number 7, and that's corporate risks and risk management. Mrs. Williamson, are you going to open this report?
I am indeed, can everyone. Members of the committee should be familiar by now with this high-level strategic risk register. It comes back to your question earlier, convener, about, you know, is it an art, is it a science, is it a specialism? In terms of our risk register in front of you today, I mean, that's the highest risk register that you will see as elected members, and the Scrutiny Audit Committee monitor that. And there are 11 risks in there, and we monitor them and evaluate them on a regular basis as a corporate leadership team. Our aim always with these risks is to reduce them. Are there ones that are complete and can come off? Are there ones that no longer need to be there? And what you have in front of you presently is 11, and 3 of them have changed. And I want to draw your attention to the 3 that we've changed. The table for the overall risk register sits on page 85. That gives you an overview of looking at what the risks are. It also tells you which ones are the high-level risks and which ones are the lower ones, and any potential new ones that might be coming in. So you'll see number 11 is COVID, and you'll see sitting to the side, perhaps at some stage coming in, the one around the National Care Service, as presenting a risk to the Council. So it's a dynamic document we keep looking at. Anyway, 3 of them have changed. Number 1, which is financial sustainability, and the detail around that sits on page 86. Second one is transforming for the future, and the detail about that one sits on page 90. And the final one I want to talk about today is the health and safety one, and the detail for that sits at page 110. So why have the risks changed? Why do we as a corporate leadership team think that it's important to raise these and to alert you as members to them? So financial sustainability has increased from a score of 20 to a score of 25 in light of the inflationary pressures and the proposed 23-24 grant settlement from government. So because of the challenges we know are coming towards us, some of the things that we're looking at, we're thinking as a corporate leadership team, we need to raise that risk higher than it was and alert you as members to it. We will keep that under constant review, as will you. The second one, transforming the future, it's raised from 9 to 15, and this is really due to the size and the scale and the speed of change that is now required. Now, we certainly feel we have been working at huge pace. We have been transforming like mad. However, what we're faced with now, in terms of the financial risk I've just spoken about, suggests that we need to be more radical than we've ever been, probably in our lives, around local government in order to be a sustainable council. So because of that, because of the capacity and because of the reducing budget, we are saying we need to raise this risk to higher up to 15, so another red risk for us to do. So finally, some better news. We've reduced the score of the health and safety compliance risk as a result of the completion of all the actions, including the full and implementation of our health and safety action plan. So I present this report to you today. It's a regular report to this committee. I present it so you're aware that we do continually look at these risks and they're under review. And just to ensure that anything we're doing as a corporate leadership team or in terms of reports to members, you're aware that we are conscious of the challenges that we are facing with some critical risks around everything we're presently doing as a council. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Okay, Councillor Vaughan.
It's maybe more a question for Mr. Lorimer, but Margot, happy for you to answer if you can. It's in connection with the National Care Service risk that you're mentioning on there. Would it not be prudent, although I know it's mentioned elsewhere and it's in plenty of other papers, but the impending pay deal that's hopefully going to be settled with the teachers in the near future, or maybe not, but is that not a major risk to our finances as well?
Well, I mean, that risk will sit under financial sustainability, but I'm happy to ask Ian to come in. But given that this is just the corporate risk register, it probably sits on the education register. But Ian, do you have anything to add?
Thanks, Margot. Through you, convener. Thanks, Councillor Vaughan, for the question. Yes, I think we've flagged up that there was a report, I think, in the last cycle around the pay deal, and the teachers' pay deal is unresolved, so that does represent a risk. I think it's covered largely from the financial sustainability risk that's in this register. There are a whole host of risks, as you can imagine right now, across pretty much the entirety of finances. That's partly why all of those risks is partly why we've increased the total score on that to a maximum of 25. I think it's important to say that that is the maximum level of risk now in relation to that. But teachers' pay is just one of many big and difficult pressures that we're currently facing. I'm happy enough that it's covered in the existing financial sustainability risk. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lorimer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, convener. Probably a question for Mr. Lorimer again. Obviously, we know that we've seen £78 million cut in budget in the last 10 years, and we're now in year one of 3, where we're going to be looking to try and do another £52 million. The risk register is already 16 points above where you would like to be. Is there a risk that within the next 3 years that we become to a critical failure if we don't see the trajectory of the budget grant change significantly?
Thanks, Councillor Gall. Yeah, I think the simple answer to that is yes. I think the position has been difficult for quite a number of years. The challenge facing us, as is outlined within this report, is on a scale that we haven't really ever seen before. The cumulative effect of all of these savings is a particular concern, and I think we've said actually in the report that the risk of us being financially unsustainable has never been higher, because of all of those combination of circumstances. So it is of great concern, and it's really about a mismatch between the level of resource that's available and the expectations and the duties that are placed on the council. I've got a report hopefully coming in the next cycle to council, which will say a little bit more about that. But the simple answer to your question is yes. I think that risk is significant, and it's one that we'll have to work very, very hard to try and manage. And I mean, we as officers and members working together in terms of our financial position and our budgets. Hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gall.
Yep, that's it. Thank you, Convener. Yes, thank you, Mr. Lorimer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much, Convener. And yeah, it's good to see the health and safety risk reduce a little. Obviously, things have improved since I left the team. That was a joke. I wanted to pick up on page 98 under partnerships. Now, I know we did a lot of work through the community planning partnership on transforming services and the relationships with our third sector partners, particularly around that, and the strategic commissioning function within the councils mentioned there. I just wanted a bit of clarity in terms of the procurement sitting within that, particularly around services that contribute to sort of social health and well-being of our communities and individuals. In that that does definitely sit within the council, for avoidance of any confusion.
Councillor Bell, can I just be clear on your question? I mean, Vivian owns this risk, but can I just be clear? Are you asking about how we're managing procurement in terms of partnership work in essence?
Yes, and I might have a subsequent request to take something offline.
Okay. So I'll respond first, and then I see Vivian's got her hand up, so she can come in after me. We're looking as a council at all we're doing around commissioning and procuring, and we're looking at can that be far more efficient than it currently is. We're doing that as a council, but we're also looking at it with our partners in terms of the community planning partnership. Vivian, you have the details on that. If you want to come in after, I'm happy for you to do that.
Thanks, Margot and Convener, and Councillor Bell. Essentially, in terms of the question that you were asking, Councillor Bell, around strategic commissioning, the main relationship with the third sector around strategic commissioning is with Voluntary Action Angus, and we work out a service level agreement with them on an annual basis. More broadly, thinking about commissioning with the third sector sits within service areas, whether that be in the health and social care partnership or children's services, and it's a kind of long-standing relationship that we've had with a number of third sector providers, closely with them around transforming services over third sector, that is, over the past 2 or 3 years, and have come to an agreed position, I suppose, as to how we want to work together. That arrangement of how we will work together in the future has never been more important to actually develop and prioritise how we can work more effectively in partnership into the future, to show how we can shift resources from one place to another, and how we can build on the kind of huge efforts that the third sector and Angus have made and continue to make alongside community and volunteering efforts. The financial position, it's not correlated with that 100%, but it is a factor that we need to take into account across the third sector as well as Angus Council.
Okay, in light of that, can I then pick up an issue with you offline, Vivian, please?
Yeah, happy to do that, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Dorn.
Thank you. So my question relates to the within the change programme, the transformation, and within the controls and actions in that is there an one that relates to monitor impact of changes to service delivery as a consequence of COVID-19, and I just wondered how relevant that one still is, and whether that is more important to update that to be monitor impact of changes to service delivery as a consequence of kind of the rapid change that's going on, in terms of ongoing monitoring of what's happening, so that we can make sure we're provided with data and information around the kind of service provision. And I just wanted to raise, I think this one does link in with the next risk that I highlighted, which is on performance management, because there's that risk relates to the fact that we don't consistently have an evidence-led understanding of performance that is important to external stakeholders. So I think these two are linked, and maybe sits in the second one, but first bit is whether the COVID-19 part is still relevant, whether there needs to be an additional one that monitors the impact of changes that are happening, and where that kind of sits within this risk overview. Thanks.
Through you, convener. Yeah, thank you for these questions. I think the COVID-19 one probably isn't far from getting taken out as a specific action. I mean, I think it's fair to say, particularly through this winter period, we are still looking at how are things changed as a consequence of COVID, as people are working far more agilely. So it's right probably to keep that until spring, maybe summer. Your other points around impact of change, some of that will be captured in some of the other actions, but happy to add it as a specific action to the transformation programme itself.
That's great, thank you, and agree on that to the spring. But then, yeah, I think there's other change going on that's around monitor that requires monitoring as well. Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Any comments? No. Okay, well, I think we've scrutinised well. There'll be a lot of good questions in there. So we've got the two recommendations to note and scrutinise, which we've just done. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, members. Okay, we'll go to agenda item number 8, and it's the detailed risk reporting to this committee, and I would imagine that's Mrs. Wiley again. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this is the detailed reporting that's just to give you an opportunity to look at individual risks and go down into them in a bit more detail. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who from the service is actually going to be speaking to this risk, but can I ask who that would be?
Oh, it's Mrs. Faulkner's got her hand up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy, and thanks, convener. I'm just going to do a very brief introduction for you, and then I'm going to hand over to Andrew Howe, who is our service leader for digital enablement and IT. And he will give a bit more information around the mitigations that we've put in place for cyber attacks. You'll all be aware that unfortunately cyber attacks are increasingly common, and government and public sector organisations are regularly being targeted. We've put in Angus a great deal of emphasis on cybersecurity and mitigations against cyber attacks. And we've got a dedicated team within our digital enablement and IT service that are working in this crucial area. We've got many technical controls that are in place, as well as focusing on the process and the people aspect of cyber attack mitigations. And in addition to the preventative place, we also focus on particular incident management and incident response to ensure the impact of a successful cyber attack is minimised as much as we possibly can. Andrew is going to speak about the mitigations and give you a bit more of the technical detail around those. So I'll just hand over to Andrew just now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you, convener, and good afternoon, members. As Sharon's indicated, we are seeing an increasing number of attacks, and we are seeing that they're more sophisticated, and cyber criminals have dedicated tools and resources to carry out. Over the years, we've very heavily focused on technical controls, and obviously we will continue to do that, but we're also focused on the people and the process side of things as well. For example, a higher percentage of cyber attacks now are starting with a phishing attack. So a phishing attack, that's a practice of sending fraudulent communications that appear to come from a reputable source. This is normally done through an email. The goal is to steal sensitive data like credit card information or login information. And I think what's really important here is the training of our staff to look out for the signs of a phishing email is equally as important as the technical controls. Also important is having the correct processes. So again, a process to deal with an incident if a staff member has fallen victim of said attack. Also, what's changing as well is, and this is in line with an industry-wide move, our strategy is to migrate our services out to the cloud. What this basically means is that they're not going to be hosted in our data center anymore. They're going to be hosted and supported by our various suppliers. So what that means is as we move our systems and services out to the cloud, and also our staff are increasingly working in an agile off-site manner, we increase our exposure to malicious threat actors, and we're also open to new attack vectors as well. That said, we want our organisation to benefit and our staff to benefit from the improved communication and collaboration tools, and we also want to benefit from the flexibility and efficiencies provided by cloud computing and agile working. So really on that basis, we're taking a risk-based approach to cyber security. All our controls and mitigations we feel are proportionate and they're in line with industry best practice. So what I want to do is very, very briefly just talk through our actions and controls. Pleased to say that all the additional actions and controls are on track. For example, when we talk about ongoing review of new threats and countermeasures, we're regularly reviewing them on a kind of almost a kind of a daily and a weekly basis as things change. All our mitigations and controls, they're based around the National Cybersecurity Centre, the NCSC, their best practice. They have what's called 10 steps to cyber, and we follow that very, very closely. As an organisation, we're also very active in an organisation called CISP, which is an online community. Again, that's there to kind of share and produce best practice. If we look at some of the other actions and controls in there, we're talking about implementing a security operations centre. So again, a relatively new concept. Now that organisations are using cloud-based services, so we need to have a 24/7 presence for a managed partner to look at what's going on, to look at kind of baselines, anything that's deviating from baselines, we can be notified and actions can be taken. You're probably aware of a couple of years ago now a very, very serious cyber attack that happened with SEPA, and we had a gap analysis program there, and again a lot of work in Angus Council has gone to looking at what happened there and what we can do internally to mitigate that. So a lot of technical things have happened there. Just very simply, we've got a new internet filtering tool that's kind of cloud-based. We've got additional policies and procedures around account management and privileged access, i.e. who has administrative access to our systems, all been tightened up subsequent to the gap analysis program from the SEPA attack. again, if we look at monitoring cyber training and awareness, I've indicated how important the kind of people side of it is. So, you know, we want to put cyber training together. We want to make sure we're doing things like simulated attacks. So, you know, fairly recently we pushed out a kind of simulated phishing attack, looked at our staff and how they responded to that and whether there was any gaps in the training. And we will continue to do those kind of simulated attacks going forward. We see that really important. And just very finally, before I open up to any questions, the kind of control around provisioning services differently. There's been a huge change in the way we've done things recently in Angus Council about moving to the cloud. So rather than being very focused on having everything in our data center, we're moving a lot of our services to the cloud. So whether that's our applications or whether that's our unstructured data, all moving to kind of fully cloud-hosted services. And with that comes some very advanced security practices our suppliers can bring us. So, you know, it's always going to be a challenge, cybersecurity, and you can see that in the overall risk score that we feel it's still high, but a lot of good work ongoing within Angus Council to protect us and mitigate against what are very serious threats. So appreciate your time and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Any questions from members? Andrew, I just have one. Obviously, when you're going to move stuff over to the cloud then obviously is much more secure. I mean, I'm not saying what we've got now isn't secure. Of course it is, to the best of our ability. But the cloud is even more secure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think what I'm saying, convener, is that, you know, obviously by moving things threat vector, by having services not just in our data center, but what the suppliers we work with very carefully is they have some very advanced cybersecurity practices that we simply wouldn't be able to produce internally or have the resource to do. So we benefit from the expertise with our various suppliers, and that's what makes it inherently much more secure.
That's fine. That's what I thought. Thank you very much. Councillor Dornan?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick one. And this is really important for the reasons that you've highlighted around the risk to the council, and it gets complicated and it's more complicated as attacks get more sophisticated. And I just wondered if it'd be worthwhile for updating members about this for some future sessions to make sure everyone's up to speed on the risk that this poses and also plans around it to help us better understand it, I think. So that was just what I wanted to raise.
Thank you very much through yourself, convener. But, you know, thanks very much, Councillor Dornan, for the question. And I also noticed that the NCSC also have a kind of a briefing for elected members and senior executives. So it might be well worth doing something for members, and I'd be certainly happy to facilitate that going forward.
Yeah, that'd be useful. I think that the members would appreciate that, Andrew. That would be good. Thank you. Any other questions? No comments? Well, we've certainly discussed a lot of risks today. That's good. Good discussion, guys. Okay, you've got the two recommendations: scrutinise and note, which we've done, and confirm any changes. I don't think there's anybody wanting to confirm any changes to the programme of risk. I think it's very detailed. I think we're all happy with it.
Agreed.
Okay, the report's agreed then. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 9 is the cost of living systems and actions, and it's a report by our Deputy Chief Executive, Mr. Armstrong. Do you wish to introduce this report?
Yes, thank you very much, convener. As the committee will be aware, in October, when you were considering the annual Child Poverty Action Report and Plan, there was a debate in relation to the emerging and awareness around cost of living and the impact that was having on households in poverty, but also a range of other households that maybe have never had to experience financial hardship like this before. And the committee asked to be kept informed of the work that the council was doing. So what this report does is it brings forward detail on the wide range of interventions and actions that both Angus Council and a large number of our partners across the Community Planning Partnership are working on together to seek to support individuals and households and communities in relation to the impacts of the cost of living. And those updates are provided throughout the report, and we're quite happy to kind of take questions on those. What I would highlight is in the context of preparing this report, really to make sure that its scrutiny is in accordance with this committee's remit, I guess, is that it's been framed in the context of providing details about the different systems that we have in place to monitor the impact, and how we, as part of the Community Planning Partnership, are clear on the intelligence and evidence that we're getting, and then how we can amend our services and our interventions to address those. So really it's given the committee the chance to comment on those systems and whether you believe they are adequate, so that we're well enough informed on what's happening on a day-to-day and a kind of week-to-week basis throughout our communities. But as I said, there's a lot of detail in the report about the range of pieces of work that are going on and will continue to go on. And as it was detailed at the last committee, we're undertaking a kind of monitoring exercise really over the period of the next 2 years to keep a handle on how we see the impacts that these are having across our communities. So happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Dawn.
Hi, thank you, Mark. And yeah, I think this is a really it's not well, I think this is an incredibly valuable report. I think it does answer those questions, and I think it is a hard read and really difficult to see how people are managing over this time. I suppose this question might be outside the remit of this committee, but I just wanted to raise the fact that the fuel poverty vouchers, then the total amount spent, that seems to match the amount of money that went in. So does that mean that fund is now kind of almost finished, and how agile the other funding can be to respond to any of the needs that are highlighted through the reporting that's done, so that funding might be directed to places where we can see there is a big demand? So, for example, if that fund is kind of has been spent and is maxed out, is the space for other funds that maybe are underspent to direct funding towards one-off support payments for fuel poverty, conscious of the fact that we're now in January and bills for December and January are coming in and the weather is still cold. So thanks.
Many thanks for your question, Councillor Dorn. And yes, you're right to highlight that fund has been fully deployed and is, in essence, in terms of the resource that was made available through the LACER funding, is now exhausted. We are looking at alternative sources of funding, and Audrey Meekie may want to come in and give a bit more detail on the work we're doing on that. In terms of the potential flexibility across different aspects of the fund, I think we had identified when we made those initial allocations as detailed in Figure 1 that they were indications of the level of resource that we believed would be appropriate to direct towards each of those different areas, and they are at present all on track to be spent. So we are really looking at how we can extend the resource that's available to provide targeted interventions. And I think the report does go on to detail that there is obviously a concern across the Community Planning Partnership that a lot of the intervention that we're putting in place is directly funded through this LACER funding, and that's really welcomed. But there is a risk that when that funding is completed, how do we ensure if the situation still is ongoing within families and households that we can sustain this level of support? So we're aware of that as a risk, but I'll invite Audrey in to see if she wants to give some more detail on alternative approaches to funding that we are pursuing.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks. Yeah, not really got a huge amount extra to add to that, Mark, but yeah, the fund, that one in particular, was opened, and actually the demand was so high that it was actually closed very, very quickly within a matter of months. There is still a very small surplus within the LACER funding that we're currently looking at the moment as a top up, and we're working behind the scenes to try and leverage in other monies. There's also some other work going on, not just around food poverty, but really trying to understand the issues and the challenges around meters and top ups and cars, etc. So that work is ongoing at the moment, but there's not a lot of funding sources open at the minute for that type of funding, but the project is there ready to go should any external funding come available.
Okay, Heather.
Thank you both.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. Mr. Armstrong, on page 129 of the report, specifically 4.4.5, the climate change transport poverty, the targeted free public transport. I mean, this has been launched on 1st of December, so we've got 2 full months. Do you have any figures on the amount of bus passes that have actually been issued? And is there a breakdown on where those people that have got those bus passes from? Are they from towns or are they from rural areas?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. I don't have those figures to hand, and I don't know if Audrey has, but we can certainly get them. In terms of all the activity that we're doing in relation to this work, we're keeping monitored records of how that's been deployed and where it is going. So we'll get that information and circulate it to the committee. I notice Mr. Lorimer wants to come in now.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, the stats on that as of yesterday were there's 27 passes have been issued so far. That's through a mixture of referrals through, I think, our welfare rights team and our vibrant communities team. I don't have a breakdown of that between urban and rural settlements. We'd need to get that separately, but I think we would have that. I just don't have that to hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Any further questions? Councillor Bell.
It was a comment. I just preempted you going to comments there, Convener. Sorry.
Yes, that's that's fine. On you go, Julie. But no problem.
Okay, thanks. No, I wanted to commend the team for their work on this. I know how well it's been going down in the communities, and I'm looking forward to the new tile one tomorrow. What's been really successful about it, I think, is it's further embedded the local resilience work that's been going on in communities and building on those networks there. And that's all to the good. And I think it'll stand us in good stead for any additional funding that becomes available, because I don't see this cost of living crisis going away anytime soon. We're going to need to be able to sustain it over an extended period of time, I think, in whatever funding strands come through. So this is a really strong piece of work to give us a good foundation to pitch for further funding. So thank you very much for that, and really encourage that deepening of those local resilience partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell, and I just echo what you've said there. This is certainly not going to go away anytime soon. Thank you. Councillor Louise Nicholl.
Hi, I've also got a comment. I was just wanting to say how well received the cost of living roadshows were from speaking to people, and just like to thank all those that were involved. I think that was greatly appreciated across the guess.
Yeah, they've been very useful. I've had good feedback from constituents as well about the roadshows, so thank you. Okay, we have the 2 recommendations in front of us. Do we agree this report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 10, Regulation of Investigatory Powers Scotland Act 2000 quarterly report, and it's a report by our Director of Legal and Democratic Services, Mrs. Buchanan. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. As members are aware, we bring this report in terms of the use of surveillance powers under RIPSA. In the period from October 2022 to the end of December 2022, there was 1 covert surveillance activity authorised, and there was no authorisations in respect of the use of covert human intelligence source. As for the one activity that took place, given the covert nature of it, we're unable to provide the detail, but we can confirm that it was done in accordance with legal requirements and the authorised activities were conducted in accordance with the authorisation.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? No comments? No. Okay, we've got the two recommendations there. They're both for noting. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. And the final item is agenda item number 11, the change programme update. Mrs. Smith or Mr. Cargill?
Yeah, Convener, I'll take that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so this is the change programme update report. This was at actually at P&R in December. So this is for Scrutiny Audit Committee's scrutiny on this one. The report highlights at the time was good progress on the change programme for 22-23. I think when, as part of the report, para 4.7 at the time, we were reporting here that we're around about 93% complete on the savings that were identified at budget setting time, with about £350,000 left to go. I could update since then that we're now at a point where we're at 98% complete, and I think it's a figure of about 15,000 still to secure. So we're virtually there this year on what we're committed to. That's the latest. There is information in section 5 for members in terms of the movement, if you like, the audit trail of the change programme since the last report. And we'll have information in section 6 around the work we've been engaged in over the past few months since summertime, and actually over summertime as well, around developing the new change programme for the next 3-year period, which obviously, you know, everybody's aware of the financial challenges and the work that we've had to do to actually develop that to meet that challenge. And then section 7 of the report provides members with the latest update on the change fund that was set aside for supporting investment in change, and also the Tay Cities Deal Fund. Happy to take any questions, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Cargill? Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
Thank you, Convener. On page 151, the change programme, is the teachers' budget efficiency 183? Is that going to be possible?
I think that's one that was being secured for this year. We've actually delivered on that this year, and the future years targets, they're also part of the kind of the change programme that we've been developing that was talking about. So yeah, there is delivery on those going forward, or it's planned for the next phase of the change programme, and other efficiencies alongside that in that area.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Williamson.
Sorry, I was just going to add for Councillor Nicholl, because I understand what where his question is coming from around some of the recent announcements from Scottish Government. We don't have the detail of all that at this stage, but we will look at it in some detail before any decisions are made on it. So just to give you some assurance, we're aware of the announcements, but in fact, once the detail arrives with us, we'll be able to look at it in a bit more in terms of the information and what's possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Any comments? No, we've got the one recommendation there, because this has obviously been to P&R, or has to go, I think it's been. So we've scrutinised the progress, and there's been a couple of questions there. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much all for your attendance. Thank you to the officers and the staff, and all for your contribution, and have the rest a nice afternoon for what's left of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.